Okay. In this episode, I'm going to focus on sounds of the Sabe people. Vocalizations, calls, and mimicry by what most people call Sasquatch. But in passing, I want to mention that while on the one hand, we acknowledge that they have abilities beyond our capacity, in the next breath, we casually blow them off as being basically stupid, when actually it could be us. In the same way that we won't go back in the woods, some people say, without a big gun, and then immediately say that no gun that they could carry would be big enough. We look at a tree structure and say that it must be a dwelling or a hovel or a nest or a signpost of some kind. But consider this, quote, "Art is worship. The more thou strivest to perfect it, the closer wilt thou come to God. What bestowal could be greater than this, that one's art should be even as the act of worshiping the Lord? That is to say, when thy fingers grasp the paintbrush, it is as if thou wert at prayer in the temple." Why shouldn't we suppose that these incredibly intelligent beings don't create for the sake of self-expression? Tell me why we don't. This is just our human-centric point of view showing, I feel. Now, I'm going to report on sounds heard here on the farm. I opened with a little drumming on the handpan, just like everyone was expecting, of course. No? Right. And likewise, again, for those new to the channel, I'm slowly learning that YouTube is different than writing and different than reading the chapters of a book, so I'm trying to get better at this. Also, for those of you who are not big believers in monotheistic religions, I am probably the only person looking into this topic who filters what I find through the writings of the Baha'i faith. And as a disclaimer, I don't know that any other Baha'is agree with me. Certainly, I don't know whether any other institutions agree with this or not at all. And I currently have my book being reviewed to make sure I'm not doing something like totally off the wall. I don't think I am. Okay, sounds and music. Here's another quote. "But in this new age, the manifest light hath, in his holy tablets, specifically proclaimed that music sung or played is spiritual food for soul and heart. The musician's art is among those arts worthy of the highest praise. It moveth the hearts of all who grieve. Wherefore, O thou Shanaz, play and sing out the holy words of God with wondrous tones in the gatherings of the friends, that the listener may be freed from chains of care and sorrow, and his soul may leap for joy and humble itself in prayer to the realm of God." That's from the writings of Abdu'l-Baha. And like I say, again, if you're atheist or agnostic, just think of that as being something good, all right? Praise of God is good rather than bad, and however you feel about that. Now, am I suggesting that the Sabe people, are singing? No, not really. But music and art is all very personal. It does not have to stay in any one box. I don't play the handpan very well. I've realized that I like to play it like a drum rather than a musical instrument. And it's kind of a hybrid of the two, but I have no idea whether I'm doing it right or wrong and don't care. The reason being, as with the Sabe people, we are encountering something truly unknown. So my suggestion is we don't rule anything out. What is a song? I don't know. So what have we heard around here? Most recently, of just a few days ago, and this is May 20th, so this past weekend, A few days ago at 8:30 in the morning, having coffee on the front porch of the stone house, which is right next door to where I am now, we heard a call. It was a tenor, like high C, 3 notes, a long first note followed by 2 shorter notes, each rising about a half step. And it was only done once, one time. There was a human sound, maybe an animal, but it was not a bird. No local animal has a call like that, or I would have heard it before. I'm 72 years old. If a local animal had a call like that, we all would have heard it. And it was like, this will be way lower than it actually was. It was like, ooh, and that was it. May have been a little longer on the first note. Before the first note was done, Barbara and I both looked at each other like, what's that? And then it was over, just that quickly. Could have been a person, but who would why would you make a call like that in just once? Cattle calls, when you're calling cattle, they're repeated. I used to call cattle as a kid. I worked with Mr. Glenn Ogle from down at the Barry Hull area, and he would call cattle. It was whook, whook, whoa. It was real loud. You do it over and over again, and the cattle all came because sometimes they got fed. Most human calls don't end on a high note. They go back down to the tonic. They go back down to where they start because there's this sense of closure when you do that. It's satisfying to most human beings. It may have been a quarter mile away and very loud, or it might have been the last note sounded closer. It might have been 100 yards away and softer. It was really hard to tell. I just don't feel that it was I don't think it was one of the neighbors doing that at 8:30 in the morning. I don't think so. And if it was close, it came from the same area where I've heard something walk up the driveway while I was sitting in the same place a couple months ago. Heavy footsteps, ending with a twig snap. Crazy. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, I've been playing handpan on the front porch later in the evening lately, and I will have to check out to see if these are 3 notes on the handpan. The thought just occurred to me when I sat down to record this and began talking about thinking outside the box. Okay, other sounds lately. A week or 10 days ago, a family member was sitting down by the fire pit just behind the hay barn at sunset, and they heard a very loud owl call. And the owl began hooting, but then it began barking like a dog. And the report to me was that whatever was doing it was making very sure that the person listening to it knew that it was neither an owl nor a dog. That was just how they felt about that. Late fall, more or less, I was sitting on the deck here at this building, and I heard a dog barking several times, like woof, 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 woof. And then after it had barked several times, there was a bark that began a couple octaves lower than that. Well, I can't even go as low as it went. And it raised back up to where the other barks had started, as if, I'm just playing. It was impossible. That's impossible for a dog to do that. I've never heard a dog start 2 octaves lower and go woof, 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 back to barking real high again. And it did it mid-bark. It wasn't one was lower than the next. It did it in the middle of a 3 or 4 woof, woof, woofs that it started so low. I've also heard 3 identical barks in different locations that when you put on surround sound headphones, like when you're playing a computer game or something and you can tell where things are, these sounded like they were going around in a circle. And after they went around in a circle, this has been back in the fall, I don't remember the exact date, but I said aloud, Allahu Akbar. That's what I said. God is most glorious. Instantly they stopped. Didn't mean for that to happen. I was just saying hello. But I also know that dogs don't quit barking just because humans speak. I've had a stray dog barking at me in my own yard, being rather aggressive, and I've had dogs barking at things at the night, and no matter how I tell them to be quiet, they ignore me even if I shout. So this is weird that you would speak and the barking would stop. That's not human experience. I've mentioned it other times, the hearing laughter and children's voices down in the woods, which interrupted me. And my neighbors have heard the same thing up here in the yard. They've described the same thing as I described to them. We, as humans, thought we were talking about the same sound. It wasn't recorded, so we don't know exactly, but it certainly sounded like we were hearing the same thing. And might have been not last fall, but the fall before last. I was sitting on the deck here at this building, and I heard a concert of owls 20 yards away in the park, several different locations, hooting very loudly and stepping on each other's calls, hooting before the other call had ended. Could have just been a loud conversation of owls. We won't know, but it was odd. You don't hear that very often. You hear an owl call and you hear another owl call back. You don't hear a squad of owls all calling at once, usually. I don't anyway. So we do have owls, we have coyotes, we have dogs that may run loose, and sometimes I know we hear them. Once in a while, they sound too odd to be that. I've heard a "who cooks for you? Ah, yeah," kind of sound, like an "oh yeah." It could be an owl. If so, I've only heard that once in my lifetime. It may have been a mistake. Maybe it was the only time the owl ever made that call. Again, given all the other things that are going on around here, someone asked, is this just a station about dreams? No, and it's not just a station about vocalizations either. It's a station about everything that's going on here. And given all of the other things that we've encountered, it makes you wonder not if any of it is the Sabe people, but which of it is and which of it isn't. Because remember, I've seen them around here. And so it's not a question for me whether they're here. I'm just saying this is some of the stuff I've heard that I think is probably them. Okay, going on. Barbara and I have been whistled at as we sat in the yard here, just out in front of this building. A long single tone whistle, like that. But it carries a long way. First time was in the yard while watching orange orbs low in the western sky just before the pandemic. Some of that I even relayed to the UFO reporting people to let them know it had happened, MUFON included. And later, it happened to me when I was alone mushroom hunting about a mile from here, where the mature maple tree had fallen over just up the bluff, 40, 80 yards maybe, and I watched it fall. As I stood very near to where I found the about size 9 footprint in the forest floor, and I was standing next to it, and I made no impression in the forest floor whatsoever, and it was pointed directly at a small tree structure, which I've got photos of that I will show you another time when we're not talking about sounds. One night, I was sitting up here on the deck in this building, and I heard a clanging, bashing sound to the northwest, like a metal crash, as if a stand full of metal welding material had fallen over. We have a bunch of welding metal stacked up in a barn a mile from here down by the spring, and that had fallen over. I could have heard that. That could be what I heard. It was clanging. It was a sudden crash and clang. The barn is where I found a single prong shed, and I stuck it in the knothole on the northwest side of the barn. Barn's not square with the world. I stuck it on the northwest side of the barn, the back of the barn. And then mowing a few days later, that's where I came across a row of rocks, 3 or 4 rocks that were pointed out towards the deer hunter's tree stand in that little field behind that barn. I mow that bit of hogcrete, the old fix it up on the farm with quicksand kind of concrete, and they were too big to mow over them. So that crash came from that barn, if that's what it was. But it didn't sound like that. It sounded like it was up to the northwest somewhere, and it could have been something just falling over. That's the thing with this. If you hadn't seen them, you'd just question yourself all the time. So here's a few things about vibrations. A couple of things about vibrations. Consider that light consists in the vibrations of the ether, whereby the nerves of the eye are stimulated and vision is produced. Now, though the vibrations of the ether exist in the lamp and in the sun, yet what a difference there is between the light of the sun and that of the stars or the lamp. Another one on vibrations. Although sound is but the vibrations of the air, which affect the tympanum of the ear, and vibrations of the air are but an accident among the accidents which depend upon the air. Consider how much marvelous notes or a charming song influence the spirits. A wonderful song giveth wings to the spirit, and filleth the heart with exultation. Okay, we had a little hiccup there. The camera got too hot. So let's see. I was just going to end with this. Things that are going on the earth affect everything on the earth. And one of the things that's going on the earth that, if you're not a fan of the Baha'i Writings or don't know about the Baha'i faith, well, that's fine, but they have some ideas about what might be going on the earth. And I'm going to end with a quote about that because it might have an effect on our topic. It goes like this. O ye friends of God, because in this most momentous of ages, the Sun of Truth hath risen at the highest point of the spring equinox, and cast its rays on every clime. It shall kindle such tremulous excitement, it shall release such vibrations in the world of being, it shall stimulate such growth and development, it shall stream out with such a glory of light, and the clouds of grace shall pour down such plentiful waters, and fields and plains shall teem with such a galaxy of sweet-smelling plants and blooms, that this lowly earth will become the Abha kingdom, and this nether world the world above. Then will this fleck of dust be as the vast circle of the skies, this human place the palace court of God, this spot of clay the dayspring of the endless favors of the Lord of Lords. It's from selections of the writings of Abdu'l-Baha. My point being that the revelation I keep researching for this topic relates that it is affecting the entire world and everything in it. The Sabe people are in it as well as we are. Perhaps they are feeling the changes as well as we are. As more humans realize and acknowledge their existence everywhere, they could be interacting more because of what is going down everywhere. So whether you want to look into that part of the writings or not is entirely up to you, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Thanks for being here. We'll talk about something else next time, maybe something with more photographs. See you then. Bye.
Yay! Did it.